Hi, everybody. Welcome back to 4AR People. My name is Aliah, and as you know, this is our first week back from spring break, and I'm not going to say not much has happened, but kind of random interesting things have happened, and today I'm going to be talking about something that we actually haven't talked about a lot, which is Senate Bill 433. So Senate Bill 433 would be an act regarding the display of the national motto and the Ten Commandments and for other purposes, and basically would require the Ten Commandments to be shown in every classroom in the state. And, you know, there's this thing we have in this country called freedom of religion. And, some people believe, and in fact, this is the case, that freedom of religion also doubles as freedom from religion. So you cannot force freedom, or you cannot force religion onto people, because, that would be mean to do, not very nice to do, right? And so today I'm going to be reacting to kind of discussion of this bill. It had already passed the Senate side, and so it got heard in House State Agencies and Governmental Affairs Committee today that I'm recording this, April 2nd. And so I'm going to be reacting to the committee portion where they're talking about this and gonna give some commentary, but I hope you guys enjoy, so stay tuned for the whole video. Let's check it out. All right, let's go.
You may, Representative Brown.
Representative Brown.
To be clear, which
I believe the Senate sponsor
Senate
is
Bill 433.
Dawson, if I'm not mistaken.
Senate Bill 433. All right.
Yes, sir.
You have a guest. If you would state your name and any organization you're here representing.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Stephanie Taub. I am Senior Counsel with First Liberty Institute.
All right.
And my name is Timothy Barton. I'm the president of Wall Builders.
All right.
Wall
Good to see
builder.
you both here this morning. Representative Brown, you are recognized to present
Makes you
Senate
think.
Bill
I know where this is going.
433.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. Members, SB 433 is just amending the current National Motto Display Act to also include the Ten Commandments. And with that, I will let my guests make some remarks.
I'll give a very, very brief history of Supreme Court opinions on the subject. In short, the analysis has changed significantly over the past several years, with the Supreme Court moving from what was called the Lemon Test to what today is known as the History and Tradition Test. The Supreme Court began
I know the
applying
History and Tradition
Establishment Clause to the
Test.
states in the mid-1900s.
I know it very well.
The Supreme Court created a test called the Lemon Test. It looked at the purpose, effect, and entanglement with religion. It was heavily criticized as arbitrary, difficult to apply, and not consistent with the original meaning and understanding of the Constitution. So in practice, in effect, under Lemon, even long-standing practices or displays were often declared
I wonder if she's going to
unconstitutional
explain
if they had religious
the
elements.
history and tradition
Sometimes
test or whatever.
cultivating
Because that's an interesting one.
extreme intolerance for mentions of religion in public life, and sometimes misleading government to infringe on the free exercise of religious rights. And when the court looked to the history and tradition, it found the Ten Commandments to be constitutional. Very brief summary. Recently,
Okay.
the Supreme Court
Pause.
has clearly stated
The History and Tradition Test. So the History and Tradition Test is used to, it uses history and tradition to inform, the original meaning of the Constitution, right? And you can see how that's problematic, surely. But if not, let me explain it to you a little bit. So the history and tradition of our country is maybe something we shouldn't be going back to make decisions. I think we should be evolving from that because, let me remind you of the history and tradition of our nation. Slavery, Black people couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote. Gay marriage wasn't legal. All these horrible things of the history and tradition of our nation and the Constitution and its original meaning, as in what the founding fathers meant those words to mean. It's the founding fathers wrote the words, all men are created equal while owning slaves. So I don't know why we would be listening to their original meaning. This test has never made sense to me. I learned it when I was in my constitutional law class in law school. And it's ridiculous. Makes no sense. And it just weird how she's like justifying this test that makes absolutely no sense when we're like interpreting the Constitution. It's like, no, the Constitution is like a workable document. It's meant to be reinterpreted as the country evolves. And so it's weird to look to its original meaning. Oh, I got so passionate, I ripped my headphones off. But yeah. So when it comes to like the 10 Commandments or whatever, it's like, whatever. I think the reason people have like problems with the 10 Commandments in schools, and why I personally have a problem with it, is because the 10 Commandments is kind of specific to like one religion, whereas like if we have religious freedom in this country, it's like, why are we mandating one religious document instead of like just allowing all of them? I don't know. I feel like allowing all of them would be very different than mandating, which I believe Representative Nicole Clowney is going to get into. So let me keep going with the video. I'm going to play it now.
And Mr. Chairman, committee, it's my pleasure to be with you. I am from Wall Builders. We are an organization that focuses on American history. We have what's considered the largest private collection of original documents from early America, and I brought several of them with me, recognizing the Supreme Court has acknowledged that the history and tradition is the current standard, with the idea being that if there's something we've always done in America, it's probably fine to keep doing it. And when you look at the history of education,
that's a problematic statement.
Education law in America was passed in 1647. It was known as the Old Deluder Satan Act. The very first textbook printed in English in America was a New England primer. The first
if we've always used it, if we've always done it, it's probably okay to keep doing it.
This is one from Massachusetts.
If they had that logic in the 1800s,
opening page, very cool textbook. But what's worth noting about this was a first grade primer used again in public schools starting in 1690 all the way through the early 1900s. And in the end of this little textbook, there's 43 questions dealing with the 10 Commandments. You literally, as a first grader, could not make it through first grade without having learned what the 10 Commandments were.
I don't know. I think it's okay that education is different than it was in the early 1900s.
Reader, one of the more
I think that's okay.
In American history, more than 100. This is where there's a lot of confusion in culture. Is it subjective? Is it up to the individual? In fact, when we look at some of the major problems with young adults, with teenagers, there's no doubt that violent crime is a major issue. One of the leading causes of death is gang violence, is gun violence, and there's a level of
the leading cause of death is gun violence. Is gun violence. Stop. Stop. It is gun violence. It is gun violence. And instead, you think the solution is putting the 10 Commandments in classrooms instead of the guns. Like it's like they create two different ideas in their head, and like it's physically impossible for them to connect the two. It's like gun violence is a problem. Gun violence is a problem. We need a solution. Boom, 10 Commandments. Like what? Oh my gosh. It's like, where was this guy when they were making guns easier to buy in the state of Arkansas? Like, where were you? Were you talking about the 10 Commandments then? Like, come on. We're going to keep going.
It was inappropriate to display the 10 Commandments, which have very things like thou shalt not kill. The notion that students can be arrested and go to jail for violating the 10 Commandments when they're not able to see the 10 Commandments seems incredibly inconsistent. But coming back to the history and tradition, there's a long-standing history and tradition.
People violate the law all the time without seeing it in front of them every day, but they know it's the law, right? It's like, what are you talking about? Also, the 10 Commandments, like, if someone kills someone, they are violating the law. They're not violating the 10 Commandments, which I know these legislators are going to get into here in a second. But it's like, there are commandments on the 10 Commandments that are not illegal by law. So like, you can violate the 10 Commandments without violating the law, right? Like, but you don't go to jail. Whereas if you violate the law, you get punished for it. Some of that being jail time, like killing. Like, what is this? What is he talking about? I don't know.
And I want to be very clear that what we're doing here is not talking about whether students can see the 10 Commandments in their classroom. We are talking about a state mandate that every classroom must display the 10 Commandments.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I'm a historian and a lawyer, so I actually really enjoyed the background there. But the Supreme Court has been very clear. It is coercive for public schools to promote religious messages to students. The Supreme Court has been clear in that. The Kennedy decision had a lot of lot of differences from what is before us right now, but I think what's very important is that we are promoting a religious message with this bill of one religion, only one religion, and we are doing it to a captive audience, very different than we saw in that case.
Representative Collins, you're recognized.
Okay, to the gentleman, I forget your name, but did you say that someone can be arrested for violating the Ten Commandments? I'd like to know more about what you meant by that.
Absolutely. You can be arrested for killing somebody. You can be arrested for stealing.
Yeah, I think that those are laws. Those are statutes that you can be arrested.
Those are
for.
laws,
and the
buddy.
origination of those statutes were derived from the Ten Commandments, which one of the things I addressed at all of the original 13 colonies when those laws were first brought in. And you can go back to William Blackstone, who was one of the most cited individuals in American law. But you can look at John Jay, the original Chief Justice. You can look at James Wilson, one of the justices, who was one of the first leaders of the first law school in America. And they explained to their students that this is the basis of our moral code, the basis of our legal code. And so those things, where did those ideas come from in American law? It certainly was influenced by the Ten Commandments.
Representative Ennett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do apologize for, I didn't hear all of the testimony before because I was running the Bill and Agriculture Committee. I have a question. How is this mandating the Ten Commandments different from indoctrination? We've done a lot of bills in the past session about what is indoctrination and all these things in the Learns Act and other bills. So can you explain to me how's this different if we have this displayed in the...
You know what she should have said? She should have been like, how is this different than like having a pride flag in the classroom? Because it's like, if we're talking about like the historical traditions or whatever, it's like displaying the Ten Commandments, which relates to like, he mentioned two religions. He said Christians and Jewish people. So if we're having like one, and there's like many more religions, if you didn't know, there's like so many. So if we're having a religious document displayed in the classroom, how is that different than having a pride flag in the classroom? Because the pride flag, they have said in the past that the pride flag is indoctrination, and anything relating to sexuality is indoctrination, books, whatever. And how is that different? She should have, I like the fact that she asked this question, but she definitely should have compared it to like a pride flag or something for like, to really make them have to answer it, because historically, gay people have existed historically. That is true. That is the history of our nation. Gay people have always existed. Stonewall was a riot. Stonewall was a protest. Stonewall is a major part of history in the gay marriage movement and the movement for the LGBTQ plus community. That is a major part of history. And so a pride flag or anything would represent that. So how is that different if we're doing the historical and traditions of our country? Gay people have always existed. But let's finish it. Let's see what they have to say.
I think it would be the same thing as looking at the fact that if students take a trip to Washington, D.C., most students do it in their 8th grade. This is the very thing they will see on significant numbers of government buildings, and we would not consider that indoctrination for them at the U.S. Supreme Court to see display of the Ten Commandments, for them to go to the Library of Congress and see display of the Ten Commandments. I don't think from a history and tradition standpoint,
that's
showing
different than their
historically
everyday
traditional
classroom,
in
though.
American education and American law, that would not be indoctrination to teach American history any more so than it would be to teach the Declaration of Independence that teaches the principles that there's a God who gave us rights and government exists to protect those rights. That's not indoctrination as much as understanding the American framework for our thought, our belief, and our structure of even governmental systems from the Bible.
I wonder if they believe in free will, because what a horrible way to use it right now.
From the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses
what an annoying way to use your free will by trying to push the Ten Commandments on
historically on the founding fathers was
all over the
Bible.
state.
And this was documented.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. That was an interesting sort of thing that's happening. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do you think the Ten Commandments should be displayed in schools? That would be an interesting thing that could happen and could be a reality. We'll see. We'll keep watching. But thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to check out all of our legislative session coverage. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe over here. Go check out those other platforms. Those buttons are there somewhere. Also, turn on your notifications to know when these go up. That would be cool. That would make me happy. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see y'all next time. Bye.